Hi, my name is Melanie LaBorwit, and I'm an educator at the New Mexico History Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And every month we make history. And this month we are especially excited to be doing a project that we couldn't always do in the museum because we don't always have an oven ready. But we're going to make some really fun Christmas salt dough ornaments. Every year, the History Museum and the Palace of Governors, right on the Santa Fe Plaza, for 38 years, the museum has celebrated Christmas and the whole holiday season by having a wonderful celebration at the museum and opening it up to everybody who wants to come. Thousands of people come in, have some hot cider and some bizcochitos, our state cookies. Today we're going to be making a cookie ornament that will last and last, and I think you'll enjoy making this year's ornament to put on your tree to add to the ornaments that you might have made in visits from past years. So we hope to see you soon, and let's get baking, rolling, mixing, and then painting. It should be lots of fun. Okay, let's go and make some history.
The first thing you're going to need to do is get together your supplies: a bowl, some flour, water, and salt. I pre-measured. You can use 4 cups flour, 1 cup of table salt, 1.5 cups of warm water, and later on you'll need paint. I'm measuring the salt here. I've already put all the flour in a bowl. If it seems like a lot, just cut the recipe in half. Use 2 cups of flour and half a cup of salt and 3/4 cup of warm water. That's all there is to it. You're going to pour the salt in with the flour, and you're going to need to mix it up really well. I started mixing first with fork after I poured it in, and then you pour in the water and start mixing with the fork until it gets a little crumbly, and then you're going to start mixing it with your hands after that. After I did this, I put in the 3/4 cups of water. I did a half a recipe, and I found that I needed to add some more water as I went along. So you'll see, you'll be able to feel. You want it to feel like Play-Doh when you're done. You're going to knead it. That means mixing it with your hands for about 5 minutes after you've poured the water in. And I'm going to speed this up here so you'll see me mixing for a little bit until it's the consistency of a really nice modeling clay. And that's just about what it's going to be like, and we'll just get it going. So you can see I started with the fork, and then you really have to get your hands in there. First one hand, you're going to need them both. And just mixing and mixing and mixing until it feels really crumbly for a while. The salt might dry your hands out. You can rinse them off later. You're going to need to get some muscle in there and really push it together. Like I said, take the time that it takes in 5 minutes and smush it all together. And finally, when you can hold it together and like in a ball like this, you'll know when it's ready. Nice and squishy. And then you'll be ready to roll it out and roll out your cookie shapes. On a clean surface, you're going to sprinkle some flour. That way it doesn't stick. You're going to sprinkle a little flour on your rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a glass or a bottle. Sprinkle flour on it too so it doesn't stick. Grab a lump of your dough, put it in a ball shape, and flatten it a little bit. And you're going to press it down, and then you're going to start rolling. So make sure it doesn't stick. If it does start to stick, you're just going to put your hand in the flour and sprinkle a little bit more on your rolling pin. Rub it all around, make sure it doesn't stick, and keep going until it's flat, about 1/4 inch thick. You don't want it to be too thick because it can bubble up in the oven. At about 1/4 inch thick, it's ready to get out your cookie cutters, or just a knife or a fork or whatever you want to cut your shapes with. I have a couple of cookie cutters, some old, some new, some are plastic, some are metal. Doesn't matter. I also did another batch. I used a paper cup. Not a problem. If it sticks like that, you just pound it out and it comes out just fine. So get all of those shapes ready, and once you finish cutting the dough, you're going to find that all of the shape, there's going to be dough around each of the shapes, and you're going to want to just pull that up and throw that back in the bowl. Knead it a little bit more. You might add water a little bit for the next batch, and just keep going until you've used all of it up. Once you've made your shapes, you're going to put them on a baking pan. I didn't need to grease it or anything like that. It's going to be nice and dry. And once you put them on the pan, you can leave them as is and bake them like that. I like to make patterns in some of my pieces. You can see here I'm cutting a piece with a fork. I just wanted it in a regular shape, and so I just used a fork to cut it. So that whatever works. Now you want to take a straw or something just to make a hole in it. A straw works really well. You can just use a knife or something else to cut a hole in the top, or just make a hole with the end of a spoon or something. Straw works great because it pulls the dough right out, and then you can just squeeze it and pull the dough out of the straw. No problem, and it's the perfect size for a ribbon or something to hold. So you're going to put them on your cookie sheet. They've already got the hole cut in them. And I decided that's when I wanted to make a pattern, so I put it back down on the flat surface, and I pressed some different things in them. I have an old sole of a shoe. These are not to eat, so it doesn't matter. I have some stamps that I pressed into them, and then I also used a fork to give it a little bit of texture. I put some eyes on the little dog figure I have, and you can make stripes with it, little pokey holes, whatever you want to do. Here you can see I'm using a rubber stamp, and I like this one because it had a face in it, and it also had some squiggly lines that I liked. And so I put that on a bunch of things, and it just creates more interest when you paint it, or you can just paint designs. Now it's ready to go into the oven. You can see some close up, and it'll be fun to see how it looks when they come out. There they go. And now you are going to bake it for about an hour at a low temperature, 200 to 300. When they come out and they've cooled, you're ready to paint. You can use tempera paints, and I've got a little bit of a mix of tempera paints and some inexpensive acrylic paints. Shake it up really well so you know it flows. Pick the color that you want and the ornament, and just get started. I started with the dark brown and just kept on going. You want to make sure you might want to paint the back of it. You might want to paint the edges. So those are some details you want to take a look at. And this gives you some idea of how I started with one dark color, and then I found a copper color to give it a little bit of a metallic little bling. And so that was kind of fun. I put that on there. And I'm going to speed this up, and you can watch me paint all the different ones. When you're done painting, you want to clean up. Make sure you put the right lid on the top of the right paint and put them all aside. Some people like to let it dry then and put a Mod Podge on the outside to make it last a little bit longer, but the acrylic is pretty good preservative. They're ready to hang on your tree and enjoy. Happy holidays, everybody, and join us next month for more Making History.